Amazing. So if we're ready to get started, I'll do a bit of an intro. I'll get you to introduce yourself, and then we'll have a nice chat.
Sounds good.
Amazing. All right. Hello, bonjour, Aniola. My name is Garrett Ryan. I am with Artist Relations here at Fringe North this season, and I am so happy to be back here at the Fringe North podcast. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of these until the festival begins on August 16th. And today I am so happy to be joined by Ellie Reynolds, who will be one of our digital artists in the festival this season. How are you today?
I'm really, really good. Thank you so much.
Amazing. I would love for you to introduce yourself as an artist. Tell our audience a little bit about, actually first, because I think it's interesting, I'd love for you to tell our audience where you are right now.
Yes, I would love to. I'm in my hometown of London in the UK, and it's extremely hot and busy today. And I'm down at the Olympic Village in East London that they built in 2012 for the Olympics. And I haven't been here since then, and it's incredible. They've completely redeveloped the whole area. There's a baseball game going on in the stadium. There's a game between the Cardinals and the I don't know who's, but there's people everywhere. So I apologize if it's a little bit noisy, but that's where I am today with my kids, visiting London and showing them around.
That's very cool. I did not know that there would be a baseball game. How popular would that be? Is there a big turnout for that?
No, it's interesting. I met an American on the train who's come all the way from Chicago, and he said that they're trying to build the presence of baseball in the UK. We haven't been very baseball-y people.
No, that's interesting. I know I'm a big baseball fan. I know that the UK competed in the baseball classic, the kind of world baseball competition earlier this year, which was cool to see. But I know it's you're more of a cricket country.
Cricket and soccer.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so there's baseball fans swarming all around the place, which is fun.
That's cool. That's interesting. Very cool. So yeah, amazing. That's so cool that you can join us from there today. So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as an artist?
I'd love to. So theatre's been my biggest love forever. I was the kid in the nativity play that spoke the loudest and got all the lines. I've always done theatre. I did a ton of it at university, and I took a show to Edinburgh right after I graduated from Cambridge. And then I accidentally moved to Canada. It wasn't my plan. I think my plan, if I had one, was to try to get a diploma in directing and go that route, because I thought I was more of a director than an actor. But instead I moved to Canada, got married, moved to the middle of nowhere, and became a stay-at-home mom and homesteader for the next 10 years, and sort of forgot about theatre and thought that there was no way to do it in the woods in BC. And then when my youngest child was about 3, which was about 5 years ago, it came bubbling out of me again in a really cool way. I discovered solo performance. I discovered the genre of solo performance. I discovered, therefore, that I could create theatre with just myself and a dramaturg and director in the woods and tour it as an independent artist. And so that's what I did in 2018. I started to write my first show, Matchmaker on the Roof, which is the show I'm presenting at the festival. And Matchmaker on the Roof is a true story that came pouring out of me after a 10-year break from the theatre. And it's the true story of how my path took me from London and Cambridge to the woods of British Columbia, married to a man 36 years older than me, married twice. And it was born out of a need to tell, I think, for my community here. I live in a very small community in BC, and it's very easy to make friends on a level, on a kind of a basic level, but I found it quite difficult to really feel known as an outsider. And so I ended up being able to use theatre in a way to become known, to share to share my personal story, and also to use all of my skills that I somehow thought that because I haven't, you know, gone on and trained professionally in the theatre in London, that means I can't have theatre in my life anymore. And I found that that's not the case. I can. And so with Matchmaker on the Roof, it took off. I got funding to tour it. I toured it all over the Columbia Basin region. And then during COVID, I got the opportunity to perform it from my living room through the NAC's, what was it called? Something at Home, you know, where people recorded stuff from their living rooms really badly, and no one knew how to do it. And actually, that was amazing. That was amazing to be given that chance. I performed it in a theatre in Nelson, BC, empty except for 3 cameras, and they live streamed it. Then, meanwhile, in the years following that, I wrote and toured another show, but I've come back to this one as my kind of cornerstone piece that showcases my storytelling. It showcases my history, my Jewish history, my voice. It's kind of it's an autobiographical kind of comedy that uses a lot of music, and you might get a clue from the title. It uses some of the melodies and characters from Fiddler on the Roof to help tell the story of a nice Jewish girl who moves from London to the middle of nowhere and finds that she needs to rediscover tradition, what that means for her, as she treads this unconventional path.
Amazing. That's very interesting. I was right away, I'm Jewish, so I was right away, I loved the title. I was like, oh, amazing. Okay, this is going to be really cool. I would love to hear a little bit about so you're from London, right?
Yep, I'm from London.
Amazing.
My dad's family came from, you know, the shtetls of Europe in the pogrom time. My mum's family is more of an Anglican Jewish family, so they've been in the UK for longer.
Right. Very cool. Yeah, I was interested to hear, because I relatively unfamiliar with the Jewish community in the UK. I know a little bit. Our Chazan from my shul here is from Newcastle, so I know a little bit about like the northern smaller communities. But what was it like growing up in the Jewish community in London?
Well, I didn't grow up in a Jewish community in London, which is kind of a bit what the show is about.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad made a decision that I think I understand, though I don't, you know, necessarily agree with, that he moved away from it as he you know, he was raised with all the high holidays and everything, but as he had his own children, we didn't live in a Jewish neighborhood or go to a Jewish school or anything, so it wasn't really present very much, except for my cousins who are from Manchester, where there was much more of a Jewish community. So my exposure to it really came from time with them. Friday nights at their house, you know, Seder at their house, and just the fact that, you know, there's lots of people in my family who love the theatre, who are musicians, who are teachers, directors, writers. So I had that. You just have the feeling, don't you, when you're with your family, of like, this is who we are. But doing the show, writing the show was my way of finding my way back through the character of my great-grandfather, who when he escaped from Poland ended up in Paris singing Yiddish songs for his bread and butter in a little Jewish cafe in Paris. And that's how he ended up meeting somebody who gave him a free ticket to London, and that's how he ended up settling in London's East End, where he had a tailor shop and the rest of it. So I haven't been connected to a Jewish community in London, really, apart from my immediate family. So finding myself so far from home in the Canadian woods, it was my music and storytelling was my way back, back into myself, back into my history. And I used the character of the matchmaker from Fiddler on the Roof. She's kind of a cheeky, but she's an important character. And she is a device in my show that stands outside of time, who has this crafty plan to bring me together with my husband, who's he's I'm a Jewish girl from London. He's an African American from St. Louis who's ended up in Canada, and he's much older than me. And somehow the matchmaker has devised it that we're going to meet. And she pops in and out of the show with little funny commentaries, and so it's really fun to use the music of Fiddler on the Roof, which I did grow up with and always loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big Fiddler fan as well, so that's amazing. Like I said, yeah, I was so excited. I was like, oh, Fiddler, and oh yeah, absolutely. So is this the version that you filmed in Nelson, BC that we're going to see at the festival?
Yes, unfortunately there's no audience there, so you can't see how hilariously people usually respond.
Right.
But I did have the good fortune to have three cameras who made a really nice edit of me performing it in an empty theater during COVID.
It is a very weird experience. I did some theater during the pandemic, and I did the same thing. I filmed on a stage, and having like an empty audience where you're kind of naturally as a performer expecting some sort of response, and then it's just radio silence, is a very bizarre experience.
I've never had an experience like that where I finished the show and I'm like, where's the high? Where's the exchange of energy? I don't know what to do now. I don't know whether to feel good about this or not.
Mm-hmm.
But the feeling good about it comes in trickles as people watched it and reached out to me. And I mean, I guess there was huge value in it. Very weird experience as a performer, because especially as a solo performer, the audience is your scene partner, really. You're performing with them, and without them, if I'm going on this crazy journey by myself and nobody's with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you is this the first time you've done, like during the pandemic, this kind of like digital theater type thing?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's I think before the pandemic I would have been very skeptical of this kind of virtual theater world, and I know especially for accessibility reasons and for like connectivity reasons, my perspective has been shifted a lot. I mean, the fact that we're able to have this conversation now and have you involved in the festival is fantastic. Like I'm really grateful for it in that way.
That's true. I mean, I'm quite limited in my ability to travel. I have 3 children. My husband's got some disabilities. It's very hard for me to travel. So the idea that I can pop into your festival digitally is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm curious how you originally became connected with our festival, just because we're also kind of in the middle of nowhere.
It must have been something online. I must have seen something, maybe on Facebook or something, and that said that you were inviting digital submissions.
Yeah.
Which is fabulous.
Yeah, it's become a big part of our mandate to make sure, even post-pandemic, that we're keeping that component to the festival, because like I said, it's really good for accessibility and connectivity with
yes. And I will say that during COVID I watched so much digital theater. I watched a lot of it, paid and not paid, but I was happy to pay because I saw some incredible things I wouldn't otherwise been able to see. So for that, I'm grateful forever. I don't get a chance very often to go to the theater myself as an audience member, and I love to do that. So that I was very enriched by that. And of course, it's not the same and all that, but it's still has a value.
Yep, absolutely. And I think from what I've seen, like you said, at first, no one really knew what they were doing, and then people have sort of grown into the medium a little bit more. And I've seen some really cool pieces digitally that I don't think would have worked in the same way seeing it actually live. Like, people have really leaned into working in that medium.
Yes, when I did it in my living room, just in front of my little webcam, I completely changed the blocking of it. I made it. It's basically a talking head performance, where I just basically have one prop this way and another prop that way, and I think that worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna ask. I was curious, because you've been touring this live. Like, some, do you have any other like big notable differences that you had to kind of adjust for doing the film version versus the live version?
Um, well, I mean, I've never been a performer for cameras before. I've only ever done theatre. So I had an incredible on the spot adjustment to make, suddenly deciding whether to look at camera stage left, camera stage right, camera center, way at the back. And I was having to make those decisions on the fly. I hadn't had any chance to prepare for that. And it made a big difference. I think I did not perform it as if there was an audience there, because that kind of would have ended up, I think, feeling like it was performed out into nowhere. I was very specific. I don't know whether they were the best decisions, but they were decisions made on the fly, with whatever instinct I'm working with, to look specifically into the three different cameras that I had. So it feels a bit, somebody said it feels a bit like Fleabag, and that, like, it's very talky to the camera-y, with the
That's amazing.
Which was fascinating in and of itself.
Yeah, I also find there's a weird performing theater, you have to be very big and expressive because the audience is so far back. And then I noticed it was very different, like when I've done some of the digital work, when you're like, oh, now we're actually close up, so we don't have to,
right.
We can capture the subtlety more.
Yes, somebody I know who's done a lot of theatre and film said, in theatre, there's a triangle that starts in your heart and goes out into the audience, and the two other points go out into the audience. And with film, it's the other way around.
Interesting.
You have the 2 points on you and the other point on the camera.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I haven't heard that before. I love that. That's very interesting. Yeah, I'm definitely not a film person, but like yourself, I had to kind of adjust to that during the pandemic. So I'm very interested in that. You said you had a dramaturg working with you for this production. I'd love to hear a little bit about that collaboration.
Yes, and it was a very meaningful collaboration to me, because also Jewish woman, Jewish performer, who had written and performed a one-woman show that also used music from a musical that I saw and really inspired me. And you don't know what is possible until you see it. And when I saw her perform a true story sprinkled in with the songs from Jesus Christ Superstar in it,
cool.
One night, I had an epiphany that night that I could borrow existing bits of melody and use them to help me tell a personal story. And I hadn't thought about that before. So it was her who I approached and said, this sounds crazy, but would you help me? And her yes was so quick.
Amazing.
I was very tentative. I'm not, I thought, I haven't done theatre for 10 years, whatever. What do I know? Who am I? And she instantly was like, write a grant. I would love to help you with that. So amazingly, I was able to get some funding from the Kootenai Columbia Cultural Alliance, it's called, to have her spend 2 weeks with me to basically workshop and produce the play, because it was my first. I've never written a play before. I've never done solo performance before. It evolved from what I had written in the first draft. I imagined it as kind of a Spalding Gray style, where it was just a monologue where I sat down and I just told the story. And she helped me think about it more as a play, which moves through time and space, and has scenes and costume changes, simple costume changes. And so she helped me to lift it from a monologue into it's a one-person play. It's multiple characters, multiple locations. We move through time and space, and we cover a huge amount of ground, from from me and my sister singing Sunrise, Sunset in the car when we're kids, through to, ending up in Canada, chasing a boy who doesn't love me, meeting the person who I am going to marry, deciding to move ending up being, having my entry into Canada refused because my immigration wasn't in order. Anyway, we cover a huge, rolling, rollicking, epic tale in 60 minutes.
Amazing.
And that collaboration was very important to me. And also, she played piano for me. And originally, when we toured it, she played piano live. And then during COVID, she recorded it. So now I can perform it without needing a piano player.
Yeah.
And so, her name's Bessie Wapp, and she's a well-known performer in the Kootenay region where we live. And the fact that she's also Jewish and a singer and a musician and has directed shows, and through that process, she really became my best friend.
Love that. There's
and
something
she also
so special that, like, the dramaturg playwright relationship is it's really hard to describe to people who haven't done that kind of work, but it is something like you're so intrinsically connected to that person just because of the type of work that you're doing. It's necessary.
Yes, it was so fun. I to realize that thanks to her and my kids getting a little bit older, and that I'm able to make theatre again on my terms, on my schedule, and tour it as I can. Amazing. It's been hugely transformative for me in my life, in my motherhood, in my sense of myself as a theatre artist, which has grown hugely since then. I now tour one-person children's shows. I wrote another show that I took to the Vancouver Fringe about giving birth. That's maybe I'll bring to your festival next year.
Cool. I would love to have you come in person at some point. We should try to make that happen. Have you ever been in our neck of the woods at all?
Never. It's terrible. I've barely left BC. I've hardly gone anywhere in Canada, and I really need to. There's hardly a sense of being Canadian to just be in such a bit. The distances here are enormous,
Yes.
compared to what I'm used to. But I need to get out of BC and get to the other side of the country.
I recommend it for sure. I've done the I'm from Ontario, but I've done the drive. I've been to every province, and I've done the drive from Ontario to Victoria, and you got to see the whole country. And I definitely recommend. And anyone that's Canadian or living in Canada, I recommend to do that. It's such an amazing way to see the country.
I can't wait. I'll just pack up the car, bring the kids, and just tour across the fringes next year, maybe.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be amazing. There's I will say that there's quite a long stretch of nothing going through like Saskatchewan, but there's
I've heard.
Yeah. It's kind of it's like so flat and nothing that it's kind of interesting. I think it's unique.
I can't wait to see more of Canada. Right now I'm in London showing my kids, this is where I grew up, this is where I'm from, that's where I went to school. And it's so cool to me that they identify as Canadian. Obviously they were born here, they feel Canadian. But yet, they haven't seen any of their country.
For
that
sure.
We all need to learn about Canada together.
Yeah, that's amazing. Absolutely. Have you ever done, so you did Edinburgh Fringe. Have you done any of the other fringes in UK at all?
The Edinburgh one's really the big one in the UK. So I did that in 2006, I think it would have been. Had the time of my life. But I wasn't performing. It was a show that I had directed.
Cool.
Last year was the first time I've done a Canadian Fringe. I managed to do the Vancouver Fringe, which was a lot of fun and a big learning experience on how, I don't know, that I'm sure every Fringe has its own culture, and its own traditions and whatever. But I feel like I got to know a bit about the Canadian Fringe.
Yeah.
As a complete newcomer, I don't excel right now at flyering, but I feel like after and as a total unknown, I found that challenging. But my audiences did grow as people saw it and recommended it and liked it. So I got a sense of what it would take to build an audience in at the Canadian Fringe. That it's possible, that you can start. You can be a nobody and build connections and with other artists and audiences in whichever city, because audiences are loyal, aren't they? It seems like there are people who do the Fringe in that town, and so you would see them.
Yeah, I found that to be the case for most Canadian Fringes that I've participated in. There's like the core local artists that like everyone's going to come to see their show. But then you're right, like if you're putting on a good show, the audience is probably going to build. That's generally what I've found.
Yes, and I did find that, and I was encouraged by that, and it's a reality check that it's hard being a self-produced artist living rurally. Like that's challenging. There's huge opportunities in it, but you have to really be a self-starter and a go-getter, and I have to push myself to do those things if I want to get people in to see my work. And I know that my work is worth anybody's time and $15, but going up to strangers in the street is like,
yeah,
I have to psych myself up to do that.
I have had to learn to do that, and it's definitely not inherently in me. I'm a very reserved type of person, so doing that kind of like aggressive promotion for Fringes has been a years long process of growth for me, because it's not, it doesn't feel natural to me anyway to try to
not at all. I mean, and it would be much easier to do it for somebody else.
I think so too. Yeah, it's weird to try to bring in someone to your own work. Is it's, I don't know, it feels very unnatural to me, but you have to kind of grow into it.
I hear you.
I'm curious, just because the work is so deeply personal and rooted into your own narrative, what do you think is the biggest thing that a general audience who has no connection with you can take from the story?
Well, it's about connecting to who we are and the traditions that we come from. And, it's about loving across a gap, and lots of people who, stories not like mine, in specifics, but in the universal, we have experience of ourselves or people in our families having found love across some kind of chasm, whether it's race or nationality or gender or whatever. And many of us have left the country of our birth and are trying to make it in another. Even all people born in Canada, we're not too many generations back, unless you're Indigenous to Canada, it's not too many generations back that people emigrated here. And every time there's an emigration, you have a story of suffering and of trying to stay connected to tradition, whatever the tradition is, and so people connect to those universal themes about belonging in a country, the challenges of falling in love across gaps, and ultimately coming back to ourselves, having lost bits of ourselves, collecting them up again. And music is such a wonderful way to do that, and it's the best way. So it certainly is in my show. We end up all singing L'chaim together.
Amazing. I love it. What do you think was the most challenging aspect of getting this show on its feet?
The most challenging aspect was believing that it was worth anybody's time, and that I should be doing it at all in the first place. I kept saying to my, director, dramaturge, Bessie, I kept saying, why am I doing this? This feels so self-indulgent. Who is going to want to come and see a show about my life when I'm nobody? Being on the other side of that now, I can, but I have to convince myself how real that was. That self-talk, and and of course she encouraged me and said, through telling our stories, we open up the world, we open up people's hearts through our true stories, and actually, and and we're crafting it so that we're giving a gift. We're not, I'm not just standing on a street corner and telling people what happened to me last night. This is years of work, and artistry and how to tell the story. But getting myself to the point where I felt worthy to tell it. And then, you speak about the challenge. The most amazing thing happened when I performed it for the first time. I performed it for the first time on a Saturday night in my own small community, in our little tiny little hall, the Grey Creek Hall, a 100-year-old log cabin that's seen so many weddings and used to be the schoolhouse and funerals. And I got up on the stage with just like work lights, shining on me, that we'd jury rigged into being theatre lights. And I performed the show for my community, and I fell into their arms afterwards. They opened their arms to me. They laughed. They cried. Amazing. They gave me the most amazing gift. And I have not looked back. I've not questioned the value and worth of telling true stories, told with love and craft and attention.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, and I think it's a really important thing for artists and storytellers to know, that there is value in telling your own story, and people will find themselves in it. I feel similarly, like it's a strange experience to want to open yourself up and think that your story will resonate with people, but then on the flip side, I see stories that are deeply personal to performers, and I connect with them so strongly. So just to I think that's such a important thing for you to share, that like finding that in yourself.
Yes, and as you say, even people whose lives haven't been similar at all, can say, your story gives me hope. That it's not too late to find love. That that I and it's fun for me when there are Jewish people in the audience. Usually there aren't, but sometimes there are, and that's a little extra spark. Or somebody who just loves Fiddler on the Roof. That's fun. But most audience members don't necessarily know or love Fiddler on the Roof, and don't have any connection to Judaism particularly. But I think the main themes of leaving home, finding out who you are in the world, falling in love, having challenges and bumps along the way, and coming home to yourself. There's something in there for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And you found a really good festival, because I'm Jewish, our president is Jewish.
Cool.
Yeah, so and it's we're operating out of a very small rural community as well, with a small Jewish population, but just coincidentally. Yeah, that's amazing, and we're so happy to have you here as an artist to bring your story to our community as well. And I think people will very strongly resonate with it.
Well, I'm absolutely intrigued to know how it will be to participate digitally in your festival. I hope that there's the best possible outcome of connection, whatever that is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited, and I hope, as much as we're happy to have you digitally, I hope at some point you can make it in person as well. That would be amazing.
Yes, I better start fundraising to get myself across Canada.
Yes, we'll talk. We'll see what we can do. But I'm noticing the time. I know we should wrap up. I should let you keep enjoying your day. But it was so nice to chat with you.
So nice. What a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Do you have anything you'd like to plug, you'd like to share with the audience, your social media, anything coming up?
Well, I'm on Facebook as Ellie Reynolds, writer performer. I think I'm Facebook.com/Ellie Solo Theatre. I do have a website, elliereynolds.com, that is under a bit of construction, but when I get back to Canada in a week, I'm going to get that up and going. But I would love to connect with people from your festival who are interested in finding me. That would be really exciting and fun.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much once again. So nice to talk. And also thank you everyone for tuning in to this episode of the podcast. Merci, miigwech, gracias. And just a reminder that Fringe North 2023 will be from August 16th to the 20th. And you can check out our website and all our social media channels in the description below for more information about the festival. And if you want to support the work that our team is doing here, you can consider tipping the Fringe, and you can find the link for that below as well. And we will be back for some more podcasts coming up for the festival, August 16th. Thank you so much, Ellie. It was such a pleasure to chat with you.
Such a pleasure. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye, everyone. And I will stop the recording if I can.